I think it was around 2007 or 8. I was asked to do an arrangement with for Andrew. I think it was with Danny Michel for one of the Source and Inspiration concerts, and then subsequent to that, there was a songbook with Stephen Page, and I did. I think I did 2 charts. Elvis Costello, I Want You, and Paranoid Android on the same concert. And I think those are the first sort of ambitious undertakings I did with the group. That's a good question. I'm wondering if I knew Andrew for a few years prior to my first official engagement with the group, and it might have been just through, this sort of tight knit community of musicians in Toronto, and either through conversations or just through different people we knew through the conservatory or whatever. I think I ended up doing a chart. I think for Danny Michel, who's a friend of mine, and I've done a lot of concerts with him. So maybe that might have been the way I first started working. I can't say with certainty, but I think that's something like that around through different, the small network of musicians in the city. You're bound to cross paths eventually with Andrew Barashko, I guess. So my experience with the group has been, split between doing arrangements, and a little bit of composition for the group, and performing. I'm fortunate to get to play on a couple of concerts a year, typically as a sax player or maybe clarinet. And what the thing that's fun for me every time Andrew calls me to do something, it's invariably a completely unique and different kind of project than the last thing we do. I mean, it might be related. For example, a songbook. The format is similar each year, but it's always a different artist, and it's always a different kind of set of songs and different sensibilities that you're trying to appeal to. So, that regardless of what he's calling about, it's going to be an adventure of some sort. Well, I think it's that element of surprise and collaboration. Really, I mean, getting to work with some of the finest artists in the country is always a thrill and an honor to do that. And it also, for me personally, it's also a way of stretching yourself, because you're trying to do something different each time, and you're trying to push yourself to places maybe you haven't been before. And those challenges are rewarding if you are successful, and if you're not, well, there's always next time, right? I think I'd have to say the Beatles shows, the 2, Abbey Road and the Sgt. Pepper's concerts, have been really rewarding to be a part of. I mean, particularly Abbey Road, because it was it's such a great record and a real monster to tackle, and you're never sure of the result. And I remember sitting in the audience that very first concert when it was presented after a week of rehearsal, and just being really just surprised, but also almost overwhelmed with the range of the singers, the talent on stage, and the arrangements of my colleagues. I was just like, every single chart that came up was completely fresh and different, and it was really neat to hear that take on material that was so familiar. And I think that was a really great concert to be a part of. And then subsequently to that, the mounting of the Sgt. Pepper's was a similar kind of thing. I guess we knew what to expect more than the Abbey Road. The Abbey Road was really just, to me, it was like, how is this going to work, and is it going to work, and is it fair to really touch such a great record from such a great group? Is it foolish or not? You don't know. But when it's successful, it's really, really a great feeling. Well, for me, I mean, I've been influenced by lots of different styles of music and from different places. I mean, on the classical side of things, I really, everyone's influenced by Bach, I suppose. He's always been a hero of mine. And then Bartok and some, Copland actually too is another sort of classical composer that I'm really influenced by. And then as a film composer, working in that medium, I mean, I would be amiss not to mention. All the minimalists who have influenced my work, like Steve Reich and Philip Glass, and that kind of music. To me, that style of music is kind of like bordering on pop music, where it's repetitive, but it really works well with film music, and it's also helped to inform the way I approach my pop writing, like my arranging for pop music, or pop musicians rather, because it's not always like a classical kind of approach. It's like the same idea where rhythm kind of drives the song. Also for me drives the arrangement. So I try to employ some of those influences when I'm doing that kind of music. So guilty pleasures. I mean, I guess I have a lot of them, and they keep changing, right? So the one right now though is I love playing drums because I'm a terrible drummer, but playing drums in like a classic rock band, like playing Steve Miller Band and things that I, as a kid growing up, I didn't really listen to much. I've sort of discovered now in my in the autumn of my youth, we'll say, and it's a real treat for me to just get together with some amateur musicians who aren't really pros, which is great because I'm not a pro on the drums, and just really thrash through some tunes and have a beer and have a laugh, really. So that's one. And then there's other things like listening to just old cheesy pop tunes. Sometimes can be really funny, and laughing about them because you forget about them, and then when you revisit them, you're like, oh, this song, it's so funny. Listen to the bridge, it's crazy, and like Hall and Oates, stuff like that. Stuff from the '80s, stuff when I was a kid. Hall and Oates is a classic where you just, at the time, you just thought this is all really corny music, and then you listen to it now and you realize, wow, there's some really deep writing here. It's like really interesting, and it's still kind of corny though. And then when you see the videos, you're like, oh my gosh, they did that. Well, people loved it, so why not?